the recording. So this is our formal lecture of Biology 100, and I will going to share my screen with you so that you should be able to see the slides of cell, the basic unit of life. I'm just trying to revisit and recall some of the things we have studied about the cells, so that you can just have a quick look. Every living thing is made up of cells. Then we came to know that the cells, we came to know about the cells because of the efforts of Robert Hooke and the microscope. And after that we came to know cells are like everywhere in all the living systems out there. We came to know about the cell theory because of the efforts of certain great scientists, that everything is made up of cells, and the new cells came from the pre-existing cells. Cells are the structural and functional unit of life as well. We came to know about the unicellular and multicellular versions of life. We came to know about that the cells are of two types, prokaryotic as well as the eukaryotic. And then we came to know about certain more definitions, and we came to know different versions of life like bacteria, protists, and humans, which are made up of one cell or many cells, which are made up of prokaryotic cells or eukaryotic cells. All these things have been addressed repeatedly in my earlier lecture. The agenda of today's class is not only to study about the cells, but to study about the different parts and the functions of the different parts of the cells. Last time we have concluded our class. After studying the cell wall, we were trying to study the cell membrane, and I explained you that the cell membrane, which is also called as a plasma membrane, it is made up of two layers. That is why it is called as the bilayer. Each layer is made up of lipid molecules. That is why it is also called as lipid bilayer. Lipid is not the only constituent of the cell membrane. The cell membrane is made up of two things. Number one, lipids, and number two, the proteins. So lipid exists in this way, in the form of two layers. So that is why it is called as bilayer. It is very, I must say, fluid type of layer which can move like this. So that is why some people refer this model as a fluid mosaic model, because the lipid bilayer exists as a fluid, and on that fluid the protein molecules are embedded like mosaic. जैसे मोती लगे होते हैं ना किसी लेयर के ऊपर, तो protein molecules are present on the lipid molecules like a mosaic. Okay, I request once again to please turn off the microphone. Okay, so that is called as a fluid mosaic model. Certain interesting thing you should remember, which I have explained earlier, that the structure of the cell membrane is responsible for the ability of the cell to allow things to pass through the cell membrane. Certain things can go inside the cell, certain things can go out of the cells, and the transportation across the cell is controlled by these cell membrane with the help of the lipid bilayer as well as the proteins present on the cell membrane. One more important thing you need to remember, all the structures in the cell which contains the term membrane will going to have the same structure like the cell membrane. Cell membrane is present outside the cells, but also remember the nucleus has a bilayer as well. The nucleus is also covered with two layers of membrane. That membrane is also going to have the same structure which I have explained to you. Same structure made up of lipids. And more accurately, those lipids are called as phospholipids. There are other structures in the cell which contains membrane. For example, this one, this blue thing. This blue thing is called as mitochondria. I will talk more about that mitochondria. The mitochondria, the Golgi complex, the endoplasmic reticulum. These things also contain membranes. It is called, these things are called as membranous bounded structures. They are called as membranous bounded structures, and their membranes are also have the same structure as the cell membrane, like the lipid, made up of lipids and protein. So the structure of membrane is universal, whether it is present around the cell or it is present around the organelles, which we will be studying in the upcoming slides. So let's move on further to the cell membrane. About the cytoskeleton, we have studied the cytoskeleton. They acted as a support. They help the cells to stay in their shape. They are made up of proteins. They are like hollow tubes. They are like the proteins which are responsible to create or to maintain the shape of the cells, to create appropriate spaces within the cell so different organelles can be accommodated. They may be like rods. Can you see these rods and these blue rods? They are responsible to expand the cells in such a way that other organelles like mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum can be accommodated. The cytoskeleton proteins are the must-have thing for every cell. Without cytoskeleton protein, the cell will not be able to exist. It will going to collapse and it will not going to able to execute its function. It's that much important. Let's proceed further to the most important organelle of all times, and that is the nucleus. Nucleus is a membranous bounded organelle which contains DNA. It's bound by two membranes. Remember, one membrane is made up of two layers. This is called lipid bilayer, जो हमने पढ़ा है. One membrane is made up of two layers. The nucleus contains two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. I will show you. Tareem, आप अपना question कर सकते हैं.
So can you please repeat the part which you told before, that a specific organ is made up of proteins and they are hollow tubes in blue color? So I missed that part.
Okay. So I was talking about the cytoskeleton. It was taught in the last class already in detail. That means every cell is carrying a protein structures. They are like tube-like structures and they are present within the cell, help the cells to stay in their shape. जैसे छत के अंदर वो डालते हैं ना आयरन के रॉड्स डालते हैं ताकि वो सर्वाइव करे, वो अपनी शेप की उस स्टेट में रहे. So cytoskeletons are something like that. It helps the cells to stay in their shape, like these blue rods and these yellow rods. They allow the cells to keep their shape so that appropriate spaces are created for the other organelles, ताकि बाकी organelles are able to accommodate within the cells and they can execute their functions. It's a must-have and a very important part of the cells. So next is the most important thing we should be studying, that is about the nucleus. It's like the central organelle of the cell. It's like the control center of the cell. It is responsible for all the functions going out within the cell. Every activity in the cell is directly or indirectly controlled by the things present in the nucleus. So first we should know what is the special thing present in the nucleus. Nucleus is a place which holds the most wonderful creation of all time, means genetic material, and it is called DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, the term which I call as the source code. It is called as the source code. So it is the DNA is present within the nucleus. It's the chamber which is surrounded by two layers of membrane. Imagine how important the genetic material is for the cells, that it is protected by not only a single membrane but with a double layer as well. So there are two layers of the membrane which covered the nucleus. And if you remember, the structure of those membranes will exactly be like the structure of cell membrane. It is still made up of lipids and proteins. Each layer is a bilayer. So something very precious lives in the nucleus. That is why it is protected with the help of two layers. There are certain openings and pores present on these membranes which allows the things to enter into the nucleus and to leave the nucleus. Those pores and gates and openings, they are called as nucleophores. Nucleus is only present in the eukaryote. Now you should be able to understand that thing. Why? Because I told you that every membranous bounded structure is only present in the eukaryote. So nucleus has a membrane, that is why it is only present in the eukaryotic cells. The nucleus contains what? The genetic material called the DNA. DNA contains the information in the form of 4 alphabets. These 4 alphabets, which we will study in detail: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. These 4 alphabets are present in different numbers and in different sequence. The sequence and numbers of that genetic material defines the difference in the different versions of life. I am different than banana. Although the banana is carrying the DNA, but the DNA, the amount and sequence of DNA in banana is different than me. The humans are different from plants. One animal is different from another. A dog is different from a cat because of the difference in the amount and the sequence of the DNA it is carrying. So that means the information that what will going to be the type of that cell, what will going to be the function of that cell, is defined by the nature of DNA that cell is carrying within the nucleus. If you ask me, a cat is made up of cells, the answer is yes. Every cat is made up of so many cells. If you ask me whether a dog is made up of cells, the answer is yes. Every dog is made up of cells. Every plant is made up of cells. But the cat is carrying a different type of cells. A dog is carrying a different type of cells. Dog cell, cat cells. The cells of the cat are different from the cells of the dog because they are carrying different amount and the sequence of the DNA. So every life form is different from another life form because it is carrying different amounts of and the sequence of DNA. This is a very beautiful thing about the life. No life is able to exist as a life without the presence of this DNA. It's universal. हमने जिंदगी जहां पर भी डिस्कवर की है, I mean on the planet Earth के बाद तो अभी हम डिस्कवर कर रहे हैं. The DNA sequence is like the source of life in every living versions, in all forms of life. The next thing is very critical, which you can ask that question, that how it is possible that a DNA, a nucleic acid present within the nucleus, is able to control the functions of the cells, is able to execute the functions outside the nucleus. How it is possible? It is possible because the DNA, the nucleic acid, the sequence defines it. It make a decision to create different types of proteins. The sequence of nucleic acids defines what type of proteins will be created in the cytoplasm, what types of proteins will be created within the cells. And as you know, proteins are the functional molecules. They are the ones who execute the function. So that means if a cell wants to execute a certain function, that cell will going to create a certain type of protein, and that protein will going to execute that function. If a cell wants to execute another type of function, the cell will going to trigger another sequence of the DNA to create a different type of protein so that a different type of function can be executed. So functions are executed with the help of proteins, and proteins are created under the instructions of the genetic sequence we are carrying. I hope this will help you to understand the reason of difference in different cells. Why the cat cell is different from the dog cells? Because the sequence and the DNA of the cat is different from the sequence and the DNA of the dog. They will going to create things in a different way. That is why the cells are different, and that makes all the difference in their appearance and in their species. If two animals are very much different from each other, that means their genetic material and DNA sequence are quite different. But I am different. Humans are very much different from the insects. So that is a logical conclusion we can draw, that the DNA sequence of humans and insects are quite different. And I can tell you, humans looks very different as compared to the primates. Primates means chimps, chimpanzees, bandar, monkey. So humans and chimpanzees they are sharing almost, please अगर थोड़ी बहुत ऊपर नीचे हो जाए, 98.4 or 5% similarity in their genetical sequences. So we are humans just because of the difference in our genetical sequence of 1.5%. सिर्फ 1.5% के difference से हम monkeys नहीं हैं. We are just, so that little difference in people in sequence of the DNA can create different functions, can create different types of cells, and ultimately different types of organisms. I hope you will enjoy all this information in the lecture which I will be delivering to you, that is about genes and DNA. But that is just to keep and to create an opening understanding about the genetic material. Shahryar ने question किया chat में कि can a specific DNA transform? The DNA can change over the period of life and during the lifetime particularly, and that what we call as DNA mutations. So DNA can be changed. The sequence of DNA can be disrupted. It can be destroyed. It can be it can be mutated. And once the DNA structure is mutated, it will not able to produce a functional normal protein. That means the function might be lost if the DNA sequence is destroyed. Okay, and this will lead to another disease. And then I told you that every nucleus is covered by a two membrane. Every nucleus is covered by a double membrane. It is present typically within the cell, almost at the center. It has a double membrane. Can you see here? This all is a nucleus. You can see the layer, two layers here. There are two layers over there. Can you see the small pores over the DNA? Those small pores are called as nucleophores. Those can call a nucleophore. Sir, I have a question from Laiba. Sir, does DNA mutation cause autoimmune disease or genetic disease? It causes a genetic disease, but it can also be a reason of autoimmune disease as well. But generally, any change in the DNA can result in the abnormal function of the cell. If something bad is happened with the DNA of the skin cells, those skin cells will not be able to perform their normal function. But guess, ये मैंने पहले एक लेक्चर में बताया हुआ शुरू में, guess if something bad happened with the genetical structures of the sperms and with the eggs of the eggs. If the mutations occur on the genetical sequence of sperms and eggs, that will going to be part of the next generation, and that can cause a disease in the next generation. And it's not possible to fix it after that once the organism is born. उसमें बहुत सारे हजारों लाखों cells होंगे. Every cell will carry the error. These are called genetical diseases. So these the little small pores present on the surface of the nucleus, they are responsible. These are the places from where things can go inside the nucleus and can come outside the nucleus, because the nucleus contains the DNA, and that DNA is giving instructions that what type of proteins should be produced within the cell. Certain small structures are also present within the nucleus. They are very important. They have their defined functions, like nucleolus. They are also present within the nucleus. The next important thing, any question related to the nucleus, then I will move to the next thing, the next organelle. Shabash. Chat mein koi question hai? No sir. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, let's move to the next. I will going to take 10 minutes. Okay, so just please 10 more minutes. So just please be patient with me. Okay, and we will be studying about the ribosomes. The next thing, ribosomes. Ribosomes are the small organelles present within the cells. They are involved in protein synthesis. I told you the cells contains nucleus. Nucleus contains DNA. The DNA is the genetic material and it can execute the functions with the help of proteins. So DNA creates a molecule called messenger RNA. If you forget the term messenger RNA at this time, it is fine. Okay, but just remember it's a kind of a molecule which carries the message. And RNA is called as ribonucleic acid. It's another type of nucleic acid called ribonucleic acid. It is involved in protein synthesis. So the DNA creates a molecule which is like a messenger. It's like a molecule which carries the message. So that is why it is called messenger RNA. That messenger RNA leaves the nucleus, वो nucleus से बाहर जाता है and enters into cytoplasm. Within the cytoplasm, there exist small organelles which are called as ribosomes. These ribosomes capture those messenger RNA which contains the message that what type of proteins should be created. So ribosomes, with the help of the instructions present on that messenger RNA, create a specific type of proteins. The job of the ribosomes is to create proteins. What type of protein the ribosome will be creating depends on the message it will receive from the nucleus. So if the DNA or the nucleus or the cell wants to create protein X, it is not related to X-Men, wants to create a protein called protein X. So the nucleus will send a messenger RNA which contains the information which is required to create protein X. That messenger RNA enters into the cytoplasm, and within the cytoplasm, the ribosomes will capture that messenger RNA and then they will going to create a protein. This is the structure of the ribosomes. Usually it is made up of two fragments. It is made up of two segments, a small subunit of ribosomes, a big subunit of the ribosome. This thread, the blue one, this is the messenger RNA. This one is the messenger RNA, which contains the message. And ribosomes will read that message with this wonderful phenomena. एक जबरदस्त mechanism की मदद से वो इसको read करता है, and then they create the sequence of amino acids. They create and connect amino acids. When they connect different amino acids, you can guess, connecting amino acids will create polypeptide, and that will create a new protein. The nature of protein, this is important, okay, to understand. The nature of protein depends on the sequence of amino acids. The sequence of amino acids will be decided by the messenger RNA. The messenger RNA came from the nucleus. So that is why what type of protein is required to be created depends on the nature of the message the nucleus is sending out. That message is captured by the small and large subunit of ribosomes, decipher the message and create the protein accordingly. And this process of creation of protein is called as translation. It's called as translation. Very important term. It is called as translation. The creation of messenger RNA from the DNA is called as transcription. The first phase, the creation of a messenger RNA from the nucleus, from the DNA, is called as transcription. After the transcription, what will happen? That messenger RNA enters into the cytoplasm where ribosomes use them and convert them into a protein. Deciphering the messenger RNA and creating the protein out of it is called as translation. Ribosomes looks like a small beads on the string, and those strings are polypeptide chains coming out of ribosomes. They are protein factories. And most important thing, another important thing, not most important, they are not membrane bounded structures. If they are not membrane bounded structure, you can guess they are only present in where? They are only present in, galat bol diya maine. They are not membranous bounded structure. That means they are present in the eukaryotic cells as well as in the prokaryotic cells. ये दोनों में पाए जाएंगे. And you can also guess the reason why it is present in both type of cells, because protein synthesis is a fundamental stuff of life. Life can be executed, the functions of life can be executed only because of the proteins. Proteins can be created with the help and instructions present on the DNA. So the DNA first priority of life, and then you need functional molecules. Functional molecules can only be created by the ribosomes. So the ribosome should be there in every version of life. Whether that life form is like a eukaryotic, a simpler one, or the life form is a prokaryotic, simpler one, or the eukaryotic, the advanced and complicated one.